Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this lecture where we're going to dig into the part of IAM that's all about controlling what you can do. A permission allows you to perform a certain action, and each one follows the pattern service.resource.verb. Now, usually, each one of the permissions that a service defines corresponds to a single one of the methods in its REST API. Now, this would probably mean more to you if you were writing the code to actually make those REST API calls, but hopefully you'll just be using some language libraries that do all of that for you automatically. Two example permissions are pubsub.subscriptions.consume and pubsub.topics.publish. These permissions would allow you to get data from or put data to pubsub, but wouldn't allow you to define new topics or add new subscriptions. You would need different permissions for those things. Next, let's take a look at roles. A role is a collection of permissions to use or manage GCP resources. So if you think about the permissions that we just talked about, if you had every one of those permissions for a particular service, that would make you an administrator for that service. And in fact, each service does have an administrator role. But that's getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's talk about the primitive roles. These roles are defined at the project level and are, because of that, often too broad. The three primitive roles are viewer, which can read any data but can't write or change things, the editor role, which can also view everything but also change things, and the owner role, which can do everything the editor and viewer can do but also control access and billing. But like I said, these are often too broad and you would rather use predefined roles. These can give you granular access to specific GCP resources. We'll get into these a bit more in a bit, but two examples are the BigQuery Data Editor or the PubSub Subscriber. Now, a difference between this PubSub Subscriber role and the permission to consume from a subscription is that this role would also allow you to set up a subscription, not just consume from one that already exists. Now, an exam tip for you is that you should definitely read through the list of roles for each product or service. Think about why each one exists. You don't need to memorize the whole list of them or anything, but it is important to have a sense for which kinds of things show up in that list. Alright, the last type of role is a custom role. Now, you can define these custom roles at the project or organization level, and you can put whatever permissions you want into them. So you can mash a couple of roles together, or just pick and choose very specific permissions that you want. Alright, now I said that it's very important to read through the list of predefined roles, so as an example, here are the ones for App Engine. The first role is the admin. This lets you do everything in App Engine. Read, write, modify access to all application configuration and settings. Not quite as powerful as the App Engine admin is the service admin. This role still lets you access a lot of things and write settings at the module or version level, but you cannot deploy a new version with this, and the application level is read-only to you. An App Engine deployer is the counterpart to the service admin. This is someone who can deploy a new version, but is not allowed to change existing versions. You can see here that the separation of duties is something that comes out from these roles. You might have a team where you have devs that can deploy new versions, and ops people who are administering the services. The next role is the App Engine Viewer, and a person with this role can look at the configuration and settings, but if you also want to look at the code, you would need the Code Viewer role. So when you read through the list of roles, try to imagine the person who would be granted that role. Well, if you have any questions about this, please let me know. If not, let's move on to the next part of IAM. Thank you.